Here in the Weltsaal of the Auswärtiges Amt. We have full house, great. Hope that everybody will maybe find a seat. It is an enormous honor to welcome today the special guest of this ambassadorial conference, I dare say India's famous foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar Subramaniam. Welcome, very, very warm welcome to you. And as I can't possibly welcome the host of this, the host in their own house, I would like to say thank you very much, Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, to host us today in this beautiful room, and thank you for sharing your thoughts today with us, together with your Indian counterpart. I think it's a great moment for many of us. It's the high point of the day, I think, at least for me. And for me, at least, it's a wonderful and unique opportunity to moderate a panel between my boss, the German foreign minister, and the foreign minister of my host country, India. So it's a great moment for me. Please allow me to express that. So thank you. So Dr. Jaishankar, this visit is very timely. We are 5 weeks, 6 weeks ahead of Indo-German government consultations in Delhi. We are very much looking forward to that, and I think this is the time to compare notes and to prepare a bit the agenda. And what a wonderful idea to sit down with us today, with the German private sector, the business of Germany, and the ambassadors, and here in our annual ambassadors conference. Without further ado, let me give you a couple of organization and housekeeping points. We will first listen to the Indian Foreign Minister's speech, and after that, Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock will share her ideas with us, and then we'll open up very quickly to questions. You will see mics here in the couloir. Please queue up behind or in front of them, and when you ask the questions, be so kind and introduce yourself and your company. That will be very helpful. We'll be very, very quick after the speeches to start with the questions, but we have to close our session in time. And my last request is, when the session is over, please stay seated until the foreign ministers and their delegations have left the room. So, without further ado, Dr. Jaishankar, the floor is yours.
Foreign Minister Baerbock, Annalena, Ambassador Ackerman, dear friends. Let me begin by saying what a great pleasure it is to share my views on the subject of India, Germany, and a changing world. And let me come directly to the point, because I understand time is at a premium. Now, most of you would be familiar with India in some manner. You may or may not have served there, visited there, but you would have a broad sense of it. But allow me to give you a brief description, because India has changed enormously in the last decade. It is today a near $4 trillion economy that has 8% growth prospects for decades further to come, where the pace of infrastructure growth is reflected in 8 new airports and 1 to 2 new metro systems built annually, where 28 kilometers of highway and 12 kilometers of railway track are laid daily. Its embrace of digital technologies is creating a public infrastructure on a massive scale. It has enabled, in the last decade, a housing program that has benefited about 170 million people, a health coverage of 660 million, and loans that are given annually to 58 small businesses. India records the highest digital financial transactions in the world, which are currently about 13 billion each month. It has the third largest startup ecosystem with 117 unicorns. Now, in addition to this, I want to stress that its human resources are also being transformed. Universities and colleges have virtually doubled in the last 10 years. There are more than 1,600 global capability centers in India that generate about $120 billion worth of business every year. The relevance of Indian talent to global workplace is visible in so many services and professions, and driving a global interest in concluding mobility agreements with us. This is now an India of moon landings and a Mars mission, a prolific manufacturer of vaccines and medicines, increasingly important to the global semiconductor industry and to contract engineering. Now, having said that, let me also be clear that there is much for us to do and a lot for us to grow. Recognizing this, the Modi government, early in its third term, has already embarked on a number of important initiatives. We plan to create 12 new industrial zones across the country to boost manufacturing. Accelerating skills development is a major focus. New logistics initiatives will target ports, highways, and railroads, and our aviation industry is set for a major expansion. Now, in all of this, foreign policy matters. It matters because global technology, resources, and best practices can make a big difference to our future. When India engages Germany and the European Union, this is a key consideration. For partners like you, it could mean both expanding markets and reliable supply chains. But there is a larger picture as well. Whether it is green and clean energy, sustainable urbanization, or new and emerging technologies, our cooperation contributes to a better world. As we enter the age of AI, of electric mobility, of green hydrogen, of space and semiconductors, the case for our collaboration only becomes stronger. While doing so, we must also assess our relationship in the context of the state of the world. Whether it is the volatility of pandemics, climate events, conflicts, or coercion, there is a growing interest in forging more reliable and resilient supply chains. Similarly, the digital era requires trusted partners and secure data flows. When it comes to international peace and stability, those with shared values and convergent interests must collaborate in defense and security. Each of these considerations has a direct relevance to the future growth of our ties. So with those words, allow me to flag some specific points in regard to our relationship. One, as the ambassador told us, the 7th intergovernmental consultations in India is due to take place and will be particularly significant because it will provide directions at a very crucial time on key issues. Two, our trade, currently at about 30 billion euros annually, and the mutual investment levels can surely do better. Changes in India and the easier business climate should serve as a motivation. Three, the 18th Asia-Pacific Conference of German Business, APK 2024, in New Delhi in October is therefore particularly important. Four, innovation and technology have to be given greater weight in our calculations. We need to think digital, AI, fintech, clean and green technologies. 5, defense cooperation must be given greater thought, especially as the Indian private sector expands in that domain. It will require export controls updating as well. We welcome the recent air exercises between India and Germany and await the impending ship visits to Goa. 6, our green and sustainable development partnership is making sure and steady progress. We have concluded 38 agreements to the tune of 3.22 billion euros. It only underlines the potential in this area, especially for green hydrogen and green ammonia. 7, there are today 43,000 Indian students studying in Germany. And this, I understand, is roughly double the number over the last 5 years. But the flow of talent could be very much higher, constituting the kind of living bridge that we have with the United States. This could be supplemented by understandings on skills mobility. 8, and most important because it applies to us foreign ministers, we need close and continuous consultations on global issues. This is necessary to build the levels of trust and confidence which behoves our partnership. And this is what I expect to do with Foreign Minister Baerbock after this meeting. So, on that note, let me also share some thoughts about how we see the world today. There is no question that it is undergoing a profound shift, transitioning from the order that was fashioned after 1945. This is visible in an economic rebalancing accelerated by globalization. It is reinforced by the accompanying political consequences. There is a basis for today for talking about multipolarity, though this is still, in my view, work very much still in progress. From India's perspective, we see European Union and Germany as one of the key players in this emerging scenario. The strategic awareness that has perhaps grown in recent years in this region is therefore of considerable interest to us. At the same time, we must also recognize the reality of interdependence and the limitations of our particular respective national capabilities. In a globalized existence, instability anywhere has consequences everywhere. It is untenable, therefore, for major nations to limit their horizons. But to act on that, it is necessary to forge partnerships and understandings. That is best done where there is comfort, where there is confidence, and where there is convergence. This is what we are seeking as we build between India and Germany a stronger relationship. And that is why we believe that Germany too should take greater interest in the Indo-Pacific, just as we in India seek to do in the Euro-Atlantic. Today, geopolitics, geoeconomics, and technology are driving us closer. How much we make of it depends on all of us. That is my message to you, and I would welcome your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this message. And, let me say that the self-confidence is in a country that is more and more self-conscious is quite striking. And I think we like to hear this message a lot. I would like to hand over to Annalena Baerbock, the German Foreign Minister, to give her thoughts here on the stage.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Good morning, Excellencies. Good morning, dear friends and guests, but especially also on stage. Good morning again, dear Minister, dear Jay. It's really an honor to have you here today at our conference, second day. And I would like to shortly echo what the Indian Foreign Minister has said, because we had yesterday, I was starting with my speech at the beginning, but today we would really like to concentrate on the partnership, and therefore we are really, really honored that you're here with us today with regard to the bilateral relations, the Indo-EU relations, but also the geopolitical shifts and chances we both face and see. We met 2 years ago, first time on longer discussions, when I was in Delhi taking the metro and experiencing your modernization strategy kilometer by kilometer, but also not only seeing people buying groceries, but also being very impressed by your UP, Unified Payments Interface, a digital instant payment system, if you would just buy fruits on the street. I thought this would be impossible in Germany. Millions user every day, but we also watched that closely and we did a big jump compared to our speed here in Germany, also with regard to digitalization, especially in my field in the foreign minister, because also I saw not only that it's possible to pay on the street with digital payments, but also I saw, unfortunately, in our embassy, in our consulate, that we are carrying application forms for visa still in boxes where you normally carry your washing clothes. So I thought, okay, I cannot change the payment on the street, but I can definitely change the digitalization in our ministry. And also we have worked on that beforehand, and we tried to apply the Indian speed. And I'm really honored and thankful to my whole team that today we have not only digitalized our forms there, it's kind of a revolution, all embassies around the world, but starting in India because of our strong relations. And now we have seen an increase of 25% within these 2 years of Indian students and professionals to Germany with regard to visas, but especially the waiting time in the embassy, which was a big obstacle, especially for all the students you mentioned here. And I think it's now already at 50,000 Indian students studying in German, that we came down from 9 months waiting time to 2 weeks. I'm saying that because we are not only impressed by the speeds of reforms you're doing, but you can see that like in sports, competition is always good. It also makes yourself better. So when we heard now all the current numbers, you were mentioning 8 airports per year. We're happy that we opened 1 here in our capital. And it took a bit more than 8 weeks. But so you could feel this makes you a bit dizzy as a European. But I would say no need to be afraid, but a reason for hope, because we are partners, as you have underlined. And this is a great chance for us, Germany, but especially Europe, to cooperate even more intensively. And therefore, because we're here today at our Business and Economy Day, at our conference, I would like to underline that for us, it's big news that the largest democracy in the world with 1.4 billion people and more than 40% of population under 25 had this speed of reform. We, therefore, have our German Indo Chamber of Commerce, the largest German Chamber of Commerce worldwide, not by coincidence, but by strategy and friendship at your country. The direct investments and the indirect investment stock held by German companies with regard to India tripled since 2010 and reached a total of 24 billion euro by 2022. And 2,200 companies, some of them here today with us, created more than 500,000 jobs in India directly and indirectly. So we can see that this partnership benefits both sides, and we are really thankful for that. And as you have heard from the Foreign Minister of India, but I would like to underline that we want to build stronger partnerships together based on mutual interest, on long-term goals, which doesn't mean, and you were hinting at that, especially with regard to geopolitical politics, that you always have to have the same position, but you always have to have the will and the power and the energy to discuss the challenges, especially if your bilateral relation is so depending on the international field. And therefore, I would like to say also thanks for the cooperation in the last 2 years, especially when we were faced with Russian war here, with challenges in the world, that we always had an open line together, because as you have said, a crisis in the world is affecting everybody. You cannot ignore what's going on at other parts in the world. But what you can do, it's in your own hand. If you cooperate, the benefit you can also feel everywhere in the world. And therefore, our strategy is, as a European Union, with regard to cooperation, to promote, to protect, and to partner. And in this regard, as you have been mentioning, your stronger interest in the transatlantic is echoed by our stronger interest in the Indo-Pacific. And we are all looking forward not only to the governmental consultations, not only to go together to Goa with regard to the Indo-Pacific deployment from our security forces, from our army, but we are extremely looking forward to meet in October again at the Asia Pacific Conference of German Business in Delhi, because this is what makes us all stronger. So thank you for having you today, and I'm really delighted to go and discuss with you in October. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Foreign Minister. It is, Foreign Minister Jaishankar, it's indeed 50,000, and it has increased by 15%, the number of students. The numbers came just out. And I think it's very heartening to know that Indians really believe in Germany. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Now, I'm opening the floor. Please come with your questions, queue in front of the mics, and introduce yourself briefly. And I think we'll collect maybe 3 questions, if that's all right with you, and then we'll answer them. There's the first question.
My name is Till Schreiter. I'm the CEO of ABP Induction. We do induction heating. I'm doing business in India since '95. Our company has in Vadodara, Gujarat state, a subsidiary now nearly for 20 years. First of all, I want to congratulate you for the really great development India is doing the last decade. And I would be happy to have the same mobile phone connection from Mülheim to Dortmund as I have from Mumbai to Pune. And now my question, I think India for us as the industry becomes more and more important for the decoupling for China as a second choice of sourcing country. We are doing a lot of production also for the export, but our biggest hassle is on the one hand, the bureaucracy for import and export, and very much for sure the import taxes, since we as plant builder need to ship certain equipment in your country to produce a final product. And I'm wondering what your government is planning on this subject. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Do we have another question coming up very quickly? Yes, please.
My name is Sabine Stricker-Kellerer. I'm an international lawyer and also asking a question from the business end. As you mentioned, we are living in a changed world, and geopolitics and geoeconomics entered every boardroom and is in every strategy department. So what we would like to know, or what I would like to know, is how in India is the relationship, interaction, the alignment between businesses and government. So that's the topic we're having here today, the alignment between business and politics when it comes to geopolitical issues. And only as an example, that would be how to deal with overcapacity coming from China or dependencies on major players. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I said a third question could be taken. Is there anybody in the room? Yeah, please.
Good morning. My name is Arndt Nenstiel. I have the honor to chair the German Asia Pacific Business Association here in Germany, or by its German acronym OAV, with more than 400 corporate members across all sectors and sizes of the German industry. Thank you for sharing very impressive numbers and facts on the transformational journey of your country. And in this regard, I'd like to ask specifically on the area of sustainability and climate change. Which strategic partnerships is your government seeking here, and how can we leverage the expertise of the German industry in this regard? Thank you.
Minister, you would like to start, maybe?
Yes. So let me start with the first question, which is the challenges posed by the bureaucracy to economic growth, to business. It's a reality, okay. But it's also a reality that is recognized by the government. So, in fact, when Prime Minister Modi was first elected, when he first came to power as Prime Minister in 2014, one of his earliest efforts was to shake up the government to try and make it easier to do business. Those days, there was actually a World Bank ranking. They stopped it for some complicated reasons I don't want to go into. But what we had done till the rankings were actually there, we were actually going up the rankings very fast. Now, we found, until you actually recognize a problem and accept there's a problem, you can't fix it. So I do want to assure you that for us, there is a very sharp realization at the highest levels of the government that we have to make India a more business-friendly country. It isn't just bureaucracy. Sometimes we have outdated regulations and laws. There's a big push to modernize all of that. There's also, I think, a much greater inclination to hear from business. I find whether it's in India or when we go abroad, we actually actively solicit from business saying, please tell us your pain points. We'd like to know from you, because that's really the most accurate feedback that we can possibly get. On the issue of tariffs, I think that's what you meant. You didn't use the word. Look, there are concerns here because, some of it goes to the last observation, the next question, that we are often a market where there's a lot of dumping from other countries, not from Germany. But the issue for us has been, how do we grow and at the same time encourage people to invest in businesses and not have those businesses swamped by unfair competition from outside. Now, again, when it comes to duties, it's one of those things, it's very hard to get it right on a permanent basis unless you are actually a low tariff economy, which many developed economies are. It's much harder for a developing economy. But here too, if we, for example, do understand that import duties are actually blocking production in India, I think we would have an open mind at looking at it, So for us, the focus, the emphasis would be, how do you encourage companies to make in India so that there's a diversified global production? If there are obstacles there, we are, as I said, open to looking at it. On the next question, what is the relationship, how do business and government how do they deal with each other? I think largely through, mechanisms like chambers of various kinds. It could be local, it could be national, it could be a narrow profession. For example, the IT industry has its own body. The pharmaceutical people have their own body. But we do encourage businesses to express their concerns to us. And equally fairly, we do express our concerns to them, where we feel that businesses need to take precautions, where they need to have policies where their exposure can have national consequences, sometimes even national security consequences. I think we would be, and we are well within our rights to tell business saying, hang on here, slow down, look at this very carefully, think what you are doing. And today, some of the debates which are going on in our part of the world are not different from those which perhaps are taking place in yours as well, which is, where does business stop and where does security begin? Where do you expose yourself, where your bottom lines actually somewhere take you that far that it's no longer comfortable. Sometimes it could even be dangerous. I think these are today legitimate issues because all countries are not the same. All businesses are not the same, and not everybody plays by the same rules and by, frankly, the same philosophy in a way. So this is, I would say, really, in a way, a kind of a shared global debate. We have our part of it. And my own sense, I didn't have enough time to speak about it. The deeper we enter the digital era, I think this challenge is going to become bigger and bigger. Because that, it's in a way paradoxical that we take so much precautions about the handling of data at home and don't worry about what happens when that data crosses our borders. So it's something we all need to think about. I don't think any of us has the perfect model. I do believe, and this is something with the EU we are trying to do through the Trade and Technology Council, that we need to understand. We're all making policies as we go along. There will be trial and error, there would be achievements, but there would be need for correction. And it's something I believe we need to have that conversation with Europe as much as we do with the United States. On the climate change, look, as I said, we still have a lot of growth ahead of us. And we know that growth cannot be replicating how previous economies grew or how we ourselves grew in the past. So it doesn't make sense to invest deeply in what you may have to dismantle down the road. So there is a very conscious drive today, particularly when it comes to renewables. In fact, if I were to pick one of the big changes in India in the last 10 years, it would actually be the enormous shift that we are seeing towards in the direction of renewables. We're also very interested, in building up hydroelectricity. Our own abilities are somewhat limited here, but many of our neighbors are more blessed than we are. We're trying to work with them. But as a kind of example, I want to share something with you. Again, a new program, a new initiative we are starting is we are actually looking at millions of houses doing rooftop solar. Because for us, decentralized solar, localized solar is actually not just better for the environment, it deals with a lot of other issues like, the inefficiency of grids. And as we move towards, an era of electric mobility, we also think that decentralized solar and, an electric era would be more fitting. But since I am in Germany, I want to say this, that we think this is one area which where you can make a big difference. You have great capacities, you have a lot of experience, and you have a commitment, which we respect. So today, the Green and Sustainable Development Partnership is one of the central pillars of our relationship, and we certainly expect, we would look forward to it.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe just to echo and not to repeat, starting with the last point. And I believe we can see how the world has changed to a good in this field. Yeah, we are holding also the Berlin Energy Transition Days in this room where many of our guests from German industry, from German business is also present. And discussions 10 years ago would have been, how could we help others? And it's not about help anymore. It's about cooperation. It's about mutual interest, and if we partner together, a win-win situation. So as the minister has said, especially with our hydrogen roadmap, this is one part of our intergovernmental consultations in October, where we do start this roadmap together to see where we do have further common investment potential, further common cooperation. With regard to the question of standards and tariffs, sometimes it's also good to hear it from the other part of the world, because as the minister said, we've been asked the same questions, also from some of you in the room, but also from partners with regard to German or European bureaucracy. So also there we are in the same boat, maybe from a different perspective, but that you are also speaking about price dumping, which is obviously an important issue for us, but also how to combine social standards with green technology. So therefore, we as partners, we were not only looking with regard to diversification of supply chain and trade relation from the security perspective, but also obviously from the economy perspective. And we know that it needs a push with regard to negotiation on an EU-India trade agreement. This is also something we are heavily working on, also within the German-Indian government consultation, because again, it's a win-win situation. The estimation is that we have a potential of an estimated growth up to 50% in trade. And why we believe it's so important, not only with regard to our economies, which obviously we all wish to grow, but showing that trade and trade relations, and also with regard to trade agreements between democracies and the biggest democracy in the world, and as a European Union, also a democracy of 27, is maybe also more successful than partnershiping with other systems in the world, would also benefit, I would believe, our common understanding of rule of law. So therefore, this trade agreement is in our economic interest, but especially also in our security interest. And then jumping to security, again, we face many similar challenges. As you have said, we live in different parts of the world, but we all ask ourselves the question, as you mentioned it so precisely, where does business start and where does business end, and where does security begin? We can move it from washing machines when we talk about sanction systems at the moment, that this could be used also as security elements. We see it in our cars. One of our biggest challenges currently as Germany and also as the European Union, if a car is not a car anymore to move, but it could also be a security cell to get information for not only from the streets, but also from the buildings and ministry and companies around. So combining this also with regard of trade, the security issue is one of the topics for us together in the future. And we believe that also the combination and the sharing of our national security strategy, of our Indo-Pacific strategy, the China strategy, is something where we can show that strong economies, strong businesses, strong economies working together benefits both, and also benefits other parts of the world.
Thank you very much. Please, come. You have to come forward and ask your question.
Maximilian Hoffmann, I am president at the Foreign Council on Economic Relations. My question is, what are India's main challenges or the biggest challenges in the Indo-Pacific over the next 5 years?
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you very much. Jochen Hau from a renewable energy company, and very happy to hear that renewables is one of the key changes that happened, and solar distribution another one. My question would be maybe the next level on sustainability and climate change. And the question is, in how far you consider the need to adapt to ongoing climate change and increase the resilience of India, of this growth story that you tell a top priority or a medium priority? Where do you rank this? Is this already impacting the life and livelihoods of your people, and do you need to move on it? And then related question, what do you do to instigate investment into adaptation, not only into mitigation. Thank you.
And the third question behind.
Bernhard Barth from the Mercator Institute for China Studies. I have two questions to Minister Jaishankar on the issue of economic security that already came up. On the one hand, this is an issue of government regulation, and your government has taken much more far-reaching decisions than many others, than our German government has. For example, you see, we make jokes here about our infrastructure and our telecom infrastructure. I understand that in India, telecom infrastructure is not built by Chinese companies. You have banned TikTok, you have banned Chinese operating systems. These are, of course, costly decisions, and I'd be interested in any advice you would have on the discussions that go on if the government takes these far-reaching decisions. And the second question, you've mentioned that, of course, India wants to upgrade its industrial sector. For that, you will, I guess, depend on Chinese investments too. So how does this relate? Economic security on the one hand, on the other hand, trying to seek investment from China in crucial sectors. Thank you.
I think it's better to start with him and then, yeah?
I think all the questions.
Mr. Jaishankar.
On the Indo-Pacific, it has been for us now, in many ways, a central preoccupation. And for very obvious reasons, because I think when you look at the world and you assess the sharpness of changes, perhaps the theater, the region where the shifts have been most marked have been really the Indo-Pacific. Now, what has happened in the Indo-Pacific? Essentially, from our perspective, because Annalena spoke about, countries, democracies, those who have similar political values coming together, that's actually happened in the Indo-Pacific. You had India, the US, Japan, Australia, located at 4 different corners, in a way, of the Indo-Pacific, actually taking a decision to work together, and that's how we revived the Quad. It was something which was attempted in 2007, and then in 2017, I think the countries decided, okay, we need to have another go at it and much more serious effort. And today, in fact, for us, it's one of the major diplomatic platforms to which India is committed, and it's we hold it from the president, prime minister level downwards, different ministers, different groups. Now, what actually happens here? Once countries make it a point to say, okay, let's find ways of working. The kind of achievements we've had in the Indo-Pacific would be from cooperating on maritime security and maritime domain awareness, to HADR operations, to connectivity issues, to we actually have fellowships, STEM fellowships. We looked even during COVID on whether we could together make and distribute vaccines. We are doing weather, extreme climate events forecasting. So we are looking at standards of various kinds. So it's in many ways for us been a very successful experiment. The interesting thing is the Quad has grown in the last 7 years. It doesn't have a secretariat. It has no formal structure. There's no accession agreement. And yet every quarter, I would say, something new is added to the Quad. And that is what happens when countries willing and, trusting of each other start to work with each other. Why is it necessary to do that in the Indo-Pacific? Because we do think that unless, countries who have an interest in stability, in security, in maintaining, in ensuring that there is a freedom of choice, unless they come together. So it's, it happens even in societies, it happens in every neighborhood, that people who have good intent sometimes need to make common cause if the world has to be a better place. And in that sense, that's really what is happening in the Indo-Pacific. On the renewables, yes, if I were to look at the last year, I think it's been the wettest, hottest, coldest year, probably all at the same time. We are visibly seeing the impact. In India, there are no debates whether climate change is for real or not. People experience that in their daily lives. And given the fact that so much of our country is agriculture, it actually is a matter of existence. And we are seeing, the mountains threatened, glaciers withdrawing, melting. We are seeing the coastline threatened. So there's the levels of erosion are going up. So there is, I would say the levels of interest and even public commitment to it has really been dramatically different. Now, how does it express itself? Because yes, in our parlance, we say, okay, mitigation and adaptation. In real life, it could be something like there was a big campaign last year to eat more millets. Now, you might think that this is a food fad. It's a very important green initiative because millets consume much less water. They are, you can grow them in semi-arid climate. There is today pressure on wheat and rice. Now, it could be that, it could be rooftop, it could be the entire it's a shift of lifestyle. What we are doing in urbanization is precisely because of that. So for us, if you ask me, what is your answer? It's all of the above. There is nothing that we are not prepared to try and nothing we are not prepared to work with people in order really to deal with this challenge. Last question, how do you deal with some of the challenges that were asked about? You asked me a question, was it costly for you to do a switch? Here's the answer. We actually, for a variety of reasons, decided that we would ourselves take a plunge on 5G. Till that point of time, the 5G technology was either European or it was Chinese. Well, there was also Korean. Now, once we decided this is important for us, telecom means security. Now, it took us about 2.5, 3 years, really. Today, there's a massive 5G rollout, and the 5G stack is an Indian stack. So I would argue that, yes, it looks costly upfront, but then you might want to ask yourself, what is really the cost of security? And whether you've built it into the calculations that you're making. And once you make that plunge, then perhaps it's not so costly. Even business-wise, it's not so costly. We are today looking at markets for our 5G. So, on the issue of investments, look, we are not close to business from China. This is the country, it's the second largest economy in the world. It's a premium manufacturer. So there's nobody who can say, I won't do business with China. I think the issue is which sectors do you do business, on what terms do you do business? So it's far more complicated than a black and white binary answer.
Some thoughts to add from you? No. Who else wants to take the floor? Please come.
Thank you. My name is Horst Kreuter. I'm representing Vulcan Energy Resources, a company that is sourcing lithium from geothermal in the Upper Rhine Valley here in Germany. But I would like to highlight one point, a very good example of cooperation between India and Germany. It's between the state of Maharashtra and the state of Baden-Württemberg. And it's between the city of Stuttgart and the city of Mumbai. It's between Karlsruhe and Pune. This works very well. And I would like you to maybe promote with other states, if it doesn't exist, to have also state-to-state cooperation. We also have an Indian festival in Karlsruhe, 4 days every summer to make Germans, used to Indian culture. And And also to Annalena Baerbock, we have one problem. We have organized in this cooperation that professionals in India will be educated and prepared to come to Germany. So the first tranche is 70 people, and then the Indians turned around, Indian Speed said 7,000 people. And then the German administration said, oh, we only can handle 1,000. What can we do to handle more than that? Thank you.
Okay, I take the lady and then the gentleman, and then I think the questions are over. Please.
Okay, my name is Elke Holz. I'm from the German Institute for Economic Research, and I would like to address the fact that women get much more victims either in the social media or on the streets. And that is not only in Germany a problem, in India as well, I guess. And I would be very interested in the case of security and labor market issues, because women don't go very often then in positions which are dangerous. What you are doing to guarantee equal chances? Thank you.
Yes. Interesting question. I see a second lady, but I think we will do the gentleman and then the second lady, and then we'll close it.
Hello, my name is Jürgen Brandes. I'm the chairman of Schaltbau, a small mid-sized company in Munich. Former, I was with Siemens and founded 3 factories in India with huge success. My question now, I saw President Modi visited Ukraine as well as Russia to help the Europeans to dissolve this kind of conflict. How do you see the role of India to mitigate the future risk of this conflict for our economy, but also for the world's economy?
Thank you. And last question, ma'am.
Hello, thank you all very much. My name is Julia Sauter. I'm the CEO of the Long Duration Energy Storage Council and also the chair of the Global Renewables Alliance. Thank you all for your conversations. Question for you on the G20, the upcoming meeting that will be in Brazil. What is India's main goal? And in partnership with Germany, what do you both look to achieve from the meetings at G20? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Jaishankar.
The first observation I take as a kind of recommendation or a motivation that, we should have more intercity and interstate, interprovincial relationships. I think it's a very good point. I'd also tell you honestly, it's not something which is deep, it's not that strong in our tradition as it is in yours. But I do think it's a good idea too. So I hope when we have our intergovernmental consultation, something we could look at. On the concerns regarding women, we have a range of issues there, and every society has its own. But if I were to share with you some of the challenges, it would be we would find school going rates for boys and girls would be different. Nutrition levels would be different. When they grew up, you would have, when it came to, say, property, it would often be in the name of the boy or the man and not the woman or the girl. When it came to political representation, we would find that the dice was like heavily loaded in one direction. So it's, and of course there is a security issue as well. In fact, often we have incidents which really create a sort of a great deal of tumult in the society. So there is, it's something one has to work on every facet of it. And again, I mean, he's not here, but I can tell you one of the proudest things for my Prime Minister is how much he's actually led this fight in India. That in his time, we've seen actually the gaps, the girls. Today, we have more girls going to school in India than boys. And that's a huge change for us because the gaps used to be very big. Now, I spoke about government giving houses to families. And we've given about roughly 36 million houses, something like that. Now we insist that the house is co-registered with the lady, that it's not something which the man of the house owns. We had last year a legislation to ensure that in our parliament we had at least 33% women's representation, also in the state assemblies. But it's, you know, it's a very complex fight, because there are centuries of, you know, prejudice, attitude, you know, habits which have accumulated, and it's not easy to fix it, but there is a great deal of determination. And in fact, you know, there was a question about the G20. One of the issues we pushed in the G20 and was the idea of women-led development. That it's not that, you know, you're bringing them up to speed. There are areas where actually we find, you know, women, for a variety of reasons, are actually ahead of the rest of society. So I'll come to the G20 and then go back to the Ukraine. On the G20, I just want to say this, and maybe Annalena would like to add to it. You know, the way it works is Brazil right now has the chair, but as the previous chair, we're part of the Troika. And the agenda of the G20 is like a carry it from presidency to presidency. Everybody adds their particular layer to what is out there. We would like definitely many of the issues which started out under us, for example, digital public infrastructure, that how do we actually facilitate, make it affordable and accessible in much of the global south, the idea of digital governance and digital delivery and digital facilities. A second is really reforming the multilateral development banks. How do we lend better? How do we make it more effective? Because in many ways, we think they are under-leveraging the multilateral development banks, the resources that they have. Finally, on the Russia-Ukraine issue, and I'll be discussing it in some detail with the minister later on. Look, let me say this. You know, Prime Minister Modi went to Russia in July, and we all went to Kiev in August, about 10 days ago. Now, here is what we think. We don't think that this conflict is going to be resolved in the battlefield. That at some stage, there's going to be some negotiation. Now, when there is a negotiation, the main parties, I mean, in this case, Russia and Ukraine, have to be at that negotiation. That it cannot be that the negotiation is everybody else taking a position and then going to Russia and saying, okay, this is our collective position. Maybe, you know, that could be one facet of it, but eventually there has to be a negotiation. We also don't think that conflicts are a good way of resolving differences. I mean, countries have differences, neighbors especially have differences. But we don't think this is an era, you know, given the interdependence. We've all seen the consequences of this conflict across the world. That there are parts of the world far, far away where it's created a food crisis, it's created a fuel crisis, it's actually created political crisis in countries because the ripple impact of this conflict has actually hurt people. So we have been very open about it. You know, what we have said in Moscow is also what we have said in Kiev. And we have said in public in Moscow that we don't think this is an era of war. We don't think you're going to get a solution out of the battlefield. We think you've got to negotiate. It's not for us to tell you what terms. If you want advice, we are always willing to give it. But that's really the position that we've taken.
Minister Baerbock.
Maybe coming from the smaller things, which are not small, but addressed from Baden-Württemberg, which are extremely important in these shaky times, that foreign relation doesn't only mean that ministers are meeting, and especially not only in capitals, but it's also better to go to the countryside, but that we do have a connection between the people-to-people connection, we call it in diplomatic terms, but also between business. This is why we're here today, but also, as you have mentioned, between states and cities. And we have seen that also with other closest friends, that sometimes if things are changing on the governmental levels, that it's so important to have these close ties. And I think especially Baden-Württemberg has a great experience. Also, if we look to the other side of our planet from the past. So I can only echo that these ties are important. This is why we call it people-to-people connection, but also urban diplomacy, that we build on this. When I go, for example, to other countries, sometimes I take mayors with me, sometimes ministers from the state level. And as you have mentioned, we are trying also to the business-to-business connection. And I would say, well, this was a way of success. You said German speed and Indian speed from 70. They asked for 7,000, and then 1,000 is definitely more. I was afraid that you were saying 700, so 1,000 is even better. But obviously, there's room for improvement, and we have addressed this. We didn't mention it before, but we also signed 2 years ago when I was in Delhi, the migration and mobility agreement between India and Germany, not only for the increase of visa, but looking at these professionals you were just mentioning. So in total, not only to Baden-Württemberg and not only with regard to maybe to the sector of your country, we have over 125,000 professionals from India in the German labor market. This is an increase again of 25% since we do have this mobility agreement. And we all know that we need 400,000 in total per year in Germany, skilled labor forces. So this is why we are working also with India as as the biggest country in the world. And again, also countries where we do not only share interests, but also many values. This is obviously something we want to work on. I'm saying this also on a day where this is now a bit internal politics here in Germany, but I would really like to address it. We do have also the migration debates in Germany about asylum. Unfortunately, it's always labeled under migration. And when we talk about migration and then meaning skilled labor, and as everything is interconnected, not only in the world between countries, but also in our debates, I would like to give this really back also to you. If we are trying to reach an increase of skilled labor from the world, also migration agreements. Obviously, countries in the world are asking me everywhere where I go, but are we really welcomed? So the tone of our current internal debate is heavily important for what you've been asking for and so many others, and what is my pure interest also as a German foreign minister, because if we don't solve the problem of skilled labor, we do have a huge problem with our economy. That also there in this debate, there is the strength for differentiation, and that we don't put it all in some basket, because then people from India, but also from Gulf countries, from the Philippines, would say German is anyhow a very tricky language. This is also an issue between us. Yeah, not everybody speaks English in our country, and we ask for German language certificates. So we do have a benefit of saying we are a democracy. Yeah, we have strong social protection and all these values, but we always also said that we're an open society. So this is all interconnected. So I'm working heavily also with Hubertus Heil when we go to the governmental consultations to India. Hubertus Heil and I will also address not only the visa issue, but also the increase of skilled labor with regard to unser Fachkräfteeinwanderungsgesetz, which we are pushing for. So this will be hopefully the next steps also in this regard of migration and mobility agreement between our two countries. Then I would like to add, because we are also working on self-reflection, and we are encouraged by your speed, but also that we shouldn't be too shy about our own successes. If we're talking about Indian trains, we can say that 80% of Indian trains use brake systems this is interesting, only made by one company from Germany, Knorr Bremse. So this is a bit also impressive here, but this is what I said before. The increase of investments, but also the economic power is not only in our interest because we like to see India grow, but because there's so many German investments, so many German companies, and I think also German technology helps for the Indian speed. And I would say also from German side, we can be a bit proud of that. And then moving to G20. And I really like this forum because obviously we do not agree on everything with regard to geopolitics, but we have a common belief, and I would say this has maybe changed over the last couple of years, that as the biggest economies, and this is why we are coming together, these 20 countries from around the world, these biggest 20 economies do have a common responsibility towards the world. And this is why this topic, it's not 1 year we're doing climate and the next year we are doing IR or something else, but there's this follow-up, this understanding that not only every 20 economies are growing by themselves, but how can there be a mutual gain for the rest of the world? Because obviously others are saying you do have a responsibility. And in this regard, the climate investments, the whole power of renewable energy is one of the major topics. And after India, now Brazil is obviously pushing on that one. But there's another field which is heavily important for many countries there. And I think, again, Germany can play a big role here and has a big responsibility. This is the global governance reform with regard to India started this under your presidency last year, but we are moving on that. The Bretton Woods, many countries didn't even exist and definitely were not at the table back in the 70s when these institutions gained force. So the reform of the IMF and also the World Bank is for us also, and I would like to say that also to our Indian friends, one of the important things, not only for more justice in the world, but also with regard to that we can use our economic powers all together. And it's being implemented now also with regard to the United Nations reform process in 2 weeks' time in New York. So the G20 in the shaky times, yeah, even though sometimes we fight heavily at the table, especially when the Russian war break out. Yeah, but these platforms are more important than ever to be in the discussions, to have these fights also, because then we heard the voice of India. We explained, yeah, that we try every day to bring also Putin at the peace negotiation table. Unfortunately, he answers with more attacks on Ukraine, but we are capable of having these controversial discussions, but showing also that we keep on working on the other fields which are also important for the world with regard to social justice, strong economy, climate change, and the financial institutions. And this power of showing in shaky times that diplomacy matters is more important than ever. And therefore, I would like to say, if I have now the last minute, again, very much thank you for being here today in the front up for our governmental consultation. And I will believe that we will have a great meeting in October. Thanks for being here and sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.